Hello friends, today we will set off on a journey through the most crowded corners of the planet. Here, the population density breaks all imaginable records and life boils on every square meter. Get ready. I am about to present to you 15 of the most overpopulated places where people live, and we will start from the end of the list, gradually moving up to the leader. And now, South Africa. Hillbrow, located to the north of the central business district of Johannesburg, is rightly considered the most densely populated neighborhood in the country. Between 74 and 100,000 people live here, although it is hard to name precise figures. During the apartheid era, this was a respectable middle-class area, but since the 1990s, the situation has changed. With the end of segregation, a massive relocation began. Both local residents and immigrants from neighboring African countries started flocking here in search of work. As a result, Hillbrow turned into a crowded and in many ways spontaneous district. Today, this quarter has an ambiguous reputation. It is known for a high level of crime and is considered one of the most dangerous places in Johannesburg. But behind this image lies another side. A vibrant community with powerful cultural energy. High-rise buildings, once symbols of modern architecture, are now often in decline. Many buildings have been divided into small apartments where entire families live. This only exacerbates the problem of overpopulation. Schools and hospitals cannot cope with the load. Infrastructure is worn out. However, not everything is hopeless here. There are projects to restore the area and create comfortable living conditions for residents. There is hope that in the coming years, Hillbrow will be able to transform from a disadvantaged place into a prosperous and lively quarter worthy of its past. We head to Africa, to Nigeria, to the most densely populated area of Lagos, Ejigbo. This place is called the Land of Wealth in the Yoruba language, and not without reason. Millions of people are concentrated here, and culture and the economy are bubbling like nowhere else. Ejigbo is located in the southwest of Lagos, between the lagoon and the industrial areas of Apapa. Back in 2006, a population census recorded about 684,000 people here. But since then, Lagos has grown incredibly fast, and today, according to the latest data, more than 1,200,000 residents live in Ejigbo. The district is packed with markets, residential buildings, and small enterprises. People live in tight quarters where representatives of different peoples and cultures coexist. This is one of the most dynamic places in the country. Ejigbo is known not only as a center of trade, but also as a cradle of music. The Ejigbo sound style was born here, combining reggae, dance rhythms, and traditional Nigerian motifs. However, with population growth came difficulties: water shortages, power outages, and a weak healthcare system. Schools are overcrowded. Hospitals cannot cope with the influx of patients. Despite this, people consider life in Ejigbo better than in the rural areas from which they came. The district has become a cradle for many famous musicians and athletes of Nigeria. Therefore, today it is perceived as a place where talents are born. We move on and find ourselves in the heart of Hong Kong. Mongkok is a real anthill, a district where life is in full swing 24 hours a day. The streets are always crowded here, and skyscrapers stand next to old houses, creating a contrast between modernity and the past. This quarter is located in the Yau Tsim Mong district on the Kowloon Peninsula, and is considered one of the most densely populated in the world. Just imagine, about 130,000 people on each square kilometer. In total, around 200,000 residents live in Mongkok. Most are attracted here by Hong Kong's status as a global metropolis and business center. The district is a labyrinth of narrow alleys and tall buildings. Housing ranges from modern high-rises to old apartments divided into tiny units. So-called box apartments are a familiar phenomenon. An entire family can squeeze into a space of only a few square meters. But Mongkok is not only about housing. It is a huge commercial hub where shops, cafes, markets, and bars create an atmosphere of unending festivity. The main artery of the area is Nathan Road, one of the busiest streets in Hong Kong. There are always crowds of pedestrians, cars, and buses here. The area's transport network stuns with its intensity. Mongkok MTR station is considered one of the busiest in the entire MTR system. Hundreds of buses and minibuses deliver people daily to different corners of the city, which makes getting around stressful, yet highly accessible. We move to the Indian Ocean, to the Maldives. Here, on a small island in the southern part of the North Malay Atoll, lies the country's capital, the city of Malé. This is the heart of the politics, economy, and culture of the entire archipelago. On an area of less than 2.3 square miles, live more than 200,000 people, almost 1/3 of the entire population of the Maldives. The population density is so enormous that tall buildings and narrow streets have become an essential part of the landscape. Population growth is explained by both natural increase and constant migration of people from other islands, since the capital offers many more opportunities for work and education. The government has long understood the scale of the problem and is taking steps. New houses are being built, services are being improved, and the most ambitious project has been the creation of the artificial island of Hulu Malay. It is meant to relieve part of the pressure on the overpopulated capital. But despite the cramped conditions, Malé remains a unique place. Ancient traditions and modern trends coexist here. The noisy fish market and port greet guests with the aromas of the ocean, and historic landmarks, such as the 17th century Friday Mosque and the National Museum, remind visitors of the country's rich history. Egypt, Cairo, the Imbaba district, a true record holder in population density across the entire world. It is located in the north of Giza, not far from the pyramids, and covers only about 3.2 square miles. But on this territory live almost 1,200,000 people. That is approximately 460,000 residents per square mile. Imbaba is a huge cauldron of cultures. Old families live side by side with new settlers who arrive in search of work and a better life. The district's streets are always full, markets buzz, and vendors lay out fruits, spices, and clothing. This is not only a center of trade, but also an important social space where people communicate, find support, and feel part of a large community. But at the same time, overpopulation creates many difficulties. Constant traffic jams, garbage, and a shortage of transport and housing. All these are everyday realities for residents. Schools are overcrowded, the level of education varies greatly, and medical institutions are overloaded. The state is trying to change the situation. It invests in new schools and hospitals, and in improving roads and water supply. But population growth is so rapid that improvements lag behind reality. That is precisely why the authorities of Egypt decided to build a new capital city, which should relieve Cairo and, in particular, overpopulated areas like Imbaba. Today, Imbaba is a symbol of how people can adapt to the harshest conditions while remaining a united and resilient community. Yorkville is a neighborhood on the Upper East Side of Manhattan that proudly bears the title of the most densely populated territory in all of North America. Its boundaries stretch from 79th Street in the south to 96th in the north, from 3rd Avenue in the west to the East River in the east. Just imagine, in a relatively small area live about 880,000 people. Here you will find an astonishing mix of architecture, from historic townhouses and pre-war buildings to modern high-rises with apartments. Thanks to such a variety of housing, the district attracts people with the most diverse tastes and means. Historically, Yorkville was a true melting pot of cultures. German, Hungarian, Irish, and Czech immigrants settled here, and their heritage is still felt. Cultural centers, establishments, and even shops remind us of this. For example, the traditional German butcher shop Schaller and Weber, or the Bohemian National Hall, where cultural events are still held. Today, the neighborhood's proximity to Central Park makes it one of the prestigious and expensive corners of New York. At the same time, it remains lively and vibrant. Along 2nd and 3rd Avenues stretch dozens of cafes, bars, restaurants, and shops. There is always a place to spend an evening. Yorkville is excellently connected by transport. The subway and buses provide quick access to all parts of the city. And although the population figures seem dizzying, there is no feeling of suffocating crowding here. On the contrary, it is an energetic and comfortable place to live. Now let us move to Southeast Asia, to the capital of the Philippines, Manila. Here there is the San Andres district, small in area but the most densely populated in the city. About 144,000 people live here. The reason for such popularity is simple: a convenient location in the city center. The streets of San Andres represent a grid of roads filled with cars, tricycles, jeepneys, and streams of pedestrians. Houses stand very close together, from traditional Filipino huts, bahay kubo, to modern apartment buildings and condominiums. The streets are never empty. You can always meet street vendors offering fresh vegetables, meat, fish, or small goods. On every corner there are small cafes serving national dishes. San Andres also plays an important role in the life of the city. There are many schools, both public and private, as well as churches and religious centers. Despite the tightness and the burden on infrastructure, the area lives its own special life. The main thing that distinguishes San Andres is a strong sense of community. Residents gather together for holidays and festivals, and it is precisely this that helps them cope with the difficulties that overpopulation brings. Now we move to Africa, to the capital of Liberia, the city of Monrovia. There lies the West Point district, one of the largest informal settlements in the country. It is located on a narrow peninsula between the Atlantic Ocean and the Mesurado River, a beautiful yet extremely vulnerable place where crowding, poverty, and environmental threats have merged into one. According to the latest data, about 75 to 80,000 people live in West Point. The population density is incredible. Houses and structures stand so close to each other that only narrow passages remain between them. Most dwellings are built from improvised materials and lack access to basic amenities: water, electricity, and sewage. Nevertheless, the district lives and breathes thanks to the energy of its residents. Small trade, fishing, and street markets flourish here. They create a unique atmosphere and demonstrate the incredible ingenuity and resilience of the local population. But high density and a lack of infrastructure turn West Point into a hotbed of epidemics. In recent decades, it has suffered seriously from outbreaks of cholera and even Ebola. Add to this the constant threats from the ocean. Shoreline erosion and flooding literally gnaw away at the peninsula. Both the state and international organizations are trying to change the situation. They are improving sanitary conditions and opening schools and clinics. But the initiatives of the residents themselves are especially noticeable, as they unite to fight for a decent life with their own hands. And although there are plenty of problems, West Point remains a symbol of survivability and strength of spirit. Now we head to Turkey, to the European side of Istanbul, to the Başakşehir district. Today, it is one of the largest residential and business centers of the city. The area of the district is about 6.4 square miles, and the population reaches 600,000 people. The name Başakşehir translates as houses with gardens. Once this was a suburb with private mansions and green yards. But the rapid growth of Istanbul changed everything. The district turned into a dense metropolis with high-rises, shopping centers, and bustling life. Başakşehir is divided into several quarters, each with its own atmosphere and features. Thanks to its developed infrastructure, it has become an attractive place for the most diverse social groups. There are no problems with transport here. Buses, minibuses, and the metro running along the D100 highway connect the district with other parts of the city. Interestingly, despite the enormous population, the district can boast quality schools and medical centers, both public and private. There are universities and modern hospitals as well. For rest and walks, there are parks and green zones, and numerous cultural events and festivals make Başakşehir not only a residential, but also a tourist place. We move to East Africa, to the capital of Kenya, Nairobi. Here, in the Mathar Valley, lies one of the oldest and largest areas of informal housing, Mathar North. By estimates, between 80 and 100,000 people live on a small territory. Houses stand so close together that streets turn into narrow paths laid between tin roofs. Buildings are mostly made from simple materials, and basic amenities like clean water and sewage are luxuries available to few. Overpopulation generates many problems: poor housing, unsanitary conditions, and a lack of medical care. But, as in many similar places, people show amazing ingenuity. Residents open small shops, street stalls, and markets. All this helps to at least somehow sustain life in the district. Of course, such density also leads to social problems: crime, unemployment, and a shortage of places in schools. Educational institutions in Mathar are overcrowded, and resources are chronically insufficient. The government and NGOs are trying to improve the situation. They launch programs for water provision, healthcare, and education. But for now, the infrastructure still operates at its limit. The most acute problem remains access to clean water and sanitary conditions. This not only holds back the district's development, but also directly affects people's health. Solving this task would be the key to changing life in Mathar for the better. Jalousie is one of the most densely populated districts of the Haitian capital, Port-au-Prince. This quarter has long been famous for its bright houses cascading down a hillside like a multicolored mosaic. But behind the colorful facades lies a different reality. By estimates, between 50 and 80,000 people live here. The population density is so high that even against the backdrop of the already overpopulated Port-au-Prince, the district stands out. The growth of jalousie accelerated over recent decades. The main reason is mass migration from villages to cities and an acute shortage of affordable housing. In 2013, the country's authorities launched an unusual project. The facades of houses were painted in bright tones, inspired by the works of the Haitian artist Préfet Dufaux. The program was called Beauty Against Poverty. It was meant to give the district a new look and at least slightly change how residents and guests perceive it. But serious problems are hidden behind the colorful walls. Most houses are built without plans and engineering standards, which means a lack of basic conditions: clean water, sewage, and stable electricity. Schools are overcrowded, medical centers barely cope with the influx of patients, and residents often have to seek help in other parts of the city. Political crises and natural disasters of recent years have only increased the pressure on this district. But despite all the difficulties, the residents of Jalousie have developed astonishing resilience. A special sense of solidarity reigns here. People unite, help each other, and try to solve emerging problems themselves. We move to India, to the heart of Mumbai. Here lies Zaveri Bazaar, one of the most famous trading districts in the country. Its fame is tied to the jewelry business. About 65% of all gold transactions in India originate here. The bazaar's history goes back to the 19th century. Since then, it has become a center of trade in precious items: gold, diamonds, and other stones. The offices of the country's largest jewelry companies are located here, and every day the streets fill not only with local residents, but also with buyers, suppliers, and tourists. The density of people in this area is off the charts. Zaveri Bazaar is part of the administrative C Ward district, one of the most densely populated in Mumbai. On narrow streets, hundreds of thousands of people collide daily. Traders, clients, and workers all hurry about their business, creating the hum and bustle characteristic only of Indian markets. But along with life's energy, the district faces serious challenges: constant traffic jams, a lack of space, and security issues due to the high value of goods. All this requires special attention. Authorities and business communities are trying to develop infrastructure, but it is also important to preserve the bazaar's unique atmosphere, because that is precisely what makes Zaveri Bazaar so special. Here they do not simply sell jewelry. Here the very life of Mumbai boils, full of colors, glitter, and contrasts. Now we move to China, to Macau. Here, among narrow streets and historic quarters, lies the Santo Antonio district, one of the oldest and liveliest corners of the city. Despite its modest size, more than 100,000 people live here. Santo Antonio is a place where cultures intertwine. Chinese and Portuguese traditions, history and modernity create a unique color. People lived in this district as far back as the times of the first settlers, and gradually it turned into an important residential and commercial center. Over time, old houses were replaced by high-rises, and the narrow streets became crowded with cars, pedestrians, and bicycles. However, despite the dense development, parks and squares have been preserved here. They have become oases for residents, where one can catch one's breath and chat with neighbors. Housing is diverse, from old traditional houses to modern apartments and skyscrapers. The government of Macau is trying to fight the problem of overpopulation and dilapidated housing. Projects to update infrastructure and reconstruct buildings are being launched. Santo Antonio is also rich in cultural attractions. The main one is the ruins of St. Paul's, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. These walls, remaining from a 17th century Catholic church, seem to remind residents of the district's rich colonial past. And at the same time, Santo Antonio remains the living heart of Macau. Markets, cafes, shops, and restaurants create a noisy, many-voiced background that makes this quarter special and unique. In the Caribbean Sea, off the coast of Colombia, there is a tiny island that boggles the mind. Santa Cruz del Islote is part of the San Bernardo archipelago and is known as the most densely populated island on the planet. Its area is only about 2.5 acres, but on this piece of land, there fit from 1,200 to 1,300 residents. That is approximately 124,000 people per square kilometer. Every patch of land here is used to the maximum. The streets are narrow passages winding between houses built flush against one another. The houses are mostly small, made of wood and concrete, and form a real labyrinth. Despite the cramped conditions, residents have managed to organize life. The island has a school, a restaurant, several shops, and even a small square where the community gathers. Since there is no room for agriculture on the island, fishing has become the basis of life. Every day boats go out to sea, and the catches feed not only families, but also serve as the main source of income. However, the island cannot fully provide for itself. There is an acute shortage of fresh water. It has to be delivered from the mainland. Electricity is produced by generators and solar panels, but dealing with landfills and waste recycling is very difficult. Nevertheless, the residents of Santa Cruz del Islote are in no hurry to change their place. Despite all the hardships, they have a strong sense of community, and many admit that even if given the opportunity, they would not want to live anywhere else. Now we move to South Asia. In the capital of Bangladesh, Dhaka, there is the Lal Bagh district, one of the oldest and largest in the city. It is known for the Lal Bagh Fort, an unfinished yet majestic 17th century fort that has become a symbol of the city. However, Lal Bagh is not only a monument of history, it is a densely populated district where about 200,000 people live. Like all of Dhaka, it suffers from overpopulation, yet it remains an important center of the capital's life. The streets of Lal Bagh are a mix of residential and commercial zones. There are shops, workshops, and stores everywhere. Traders sell everything, from vegetables and fruits to clothing and electronics. The district literally bubbles with energy. At the same time, Lal Bagh stands out against the background of other similar areas thanks to relatively developed infrastructure. There are schools, colleges, and madrasas here, as well as well-known educational institutions such as the Lal Bagh Model School and College. Medical services are also accessible. Clinics, pharmacies, and both public and private hospitals operate. But there are enough problems here as well. The crowded streets suffer from traffic jams. Waste is not always removed on time, and during the monsoon season, the district is often flooded. Nevertheless, compared to other districts of Dhaka, Lal Bagh appears more organized and adapted for life. We have visited the most crowded corners of the planet, from the bright hills of Haiti to the noisy markets of Cairo. These places are more than numbers. They are stories about endurance, strength of spirit, and the ability of people to build lives even in the tightest conditions. Overpopulated districts are a mirror of our civilization. They show both its difficulties and its incredible capacity to survive. Thank you for being with me on this journey. See you in the next discoveries.